realize that people are still entering the meeting and coming in through our waiting room. But while we're sitting here, I wanted to welcome you to today's financial aid training, federal, state, and VSAC updates brought to you by Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. My name is Carrie Harlow, and I'm a member of the Career and Education Outreach team. I work with middle and high school students with the Talent Search and Gear Up programs. I'm joined today by Stacy King. She is a member of our Educational Opportunity Centers outreach staff, and she works with adult learners. We'll be bringing you the first part of this presentation, and then we'll be joined by Marilyn Cargill, Patrick Leduc, and Kirsten Boehm midway through. You might notice that all of our attendee mics are muted for this event. We'd like to ask you to please use the chat to ask questions. If we're not able to get to all of them, we will follow up with a Q&A sheet to all participants after the event. We are also hoping that you'll give us feedback on this presentation when we follow up. It helps us with future planning for events and offerings. This presentation used to be a whole morning presentation that we would offer at various locations throughout the state. We're pivoting to virtual this year, and we're trying to fit a lot of information into roughly an hour and a half. So we do understand that it might feel a little rushed, but we're trying to get you the information that you're hoping for today. Let's get started. So we'll start with updates to federal student aid, and this first update is something that some folks may be familiar with because this happened at the end of December 2019. What federal student aid did was they noticed that they had a bunch of different websites that they were sending people to. They'd send folks to the FSAID website or to studentloans.gov or studentaid.gov. They had studentloans.gov, they had NSLDS. There were a lot of websites, and what they did was they consolidated those into one website, which was studentaid.gov. And now people can have a one-stop shop to get all of their information. And so this might be a change for some folks. With the cycle of financial aid, sometimes when we're working with people, we do really heavy work with families in the fall. And we might not have noticed that change. Other folks may be noticing it because they're working with it on a regular basis. So it looks a little bit different when you go to studentaid.gov, and you'll notice that there's a place to log in or create an account. And so when we're talking to families about their FSA ID, or we're talking to learners about their FSA ID, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. We're using some different language now when we say create an account, but that FSA ID, as you remember, is a username and password. And so there's a place right on the landing page to create that account. In addition, there's now an account dashboard. And so students and borrowers can see at a glance what they've had received for financial aid. The blue is the loans and the green is the grants, and it shows the different types of grants as well as principal and interest on the loan amounts. The other thing that you might notice is that on the right side of the screen, there are prompts for completing the FAFSA or using the loan simulator or even completing entrance counseling. So when we talk to families about the FAFSA, many of us know that this is required for federal student aid programs as well as for Vermont incentive and part-time grant programs. It may also be required for institutional aid as well as for different scholarship programs. But to be honest, this is the question that we get a lot at VSAC, and we know some other counselors also get it. We won't qualify, so why bother? Well, filing the FAFSA is important for students who want to be eligible for federal student loans. And that's important because right now, the federal loan interest rates are really great, and there's a lot of protections around those loans. Students might not qualify for a federal Pell Grant, but they could qualify for things like work study or institutional aid. And there are some scholarship programs that require a FAFSA filed just to determine some financial need. Or also, we're going to talk a bit about the College Board Opportunity Scholarship. That has to do with filing a FAFSA. In addition, families cannot communicate special circumstances to colleges without having the FAFSA on file. If they want to talk about a change in family income or a change in marital status or additional expenses not reflected on the FAFSA, in order to have that financial aid reviewed, they have to have a FAFSA on file. And so one of the things I talk to families about is think of it as an insurance policy. Things might be great right now, but if things change, you have that FAFSA on file and you can follow up with the College Financial Aid Office about those special circumstances. When I look at this slide, I actually laughed about it this morning as I was reviewing it because there are really 4 ways to file a FAFSA, but there's 3 ways to electronically file a FAFSA. You can use a computer, you can use a mobile device, including a cell phone, and Federal Student Aid has made the FAFSA mobile responsive, so you can see the whole thing on your screen. In addition, there's the My Student Aid mobile app, and the updates will be coming on October 1st. So you either want to download the app after October 1st or on October 1st, or you'll have to do an update to your existing app on October 1st or after. The 4th way to file is paper. You can still file a paper FAFSA, but more than 99% of families who file a FAFSA are doing so electronically. So if a family cannot do an electronic FAFSA, you can use a paper one, but there are so many advantages to filing online that we really want to encourage people to do that if they can. And the look and functionality of the website also recognizes the ways that families file. You know, sometimes the student and the parent are together filing the FAFSA, but sometimes, especially for college students, it's the students filing without the parent or the parent filing without the student. We see that quite often in VSAC outreach, especially when we were doing forms nights in person. You can still reach the FAFSA by typing in fafsa.gov. So you can still do that, or you can move your way through studentaid.gov to the FAFSA form. I think it's 3 clicks. But if you're new to the FAFSA process, you have a starting point, and then if you're a returning user, you can log in and you can find additional information. The FAFSA recognizes, again, that people are in different combinations when they're filing the form, and so the login on a computer screen or mobile screen or using the app will recognize that that's the case, and it will ask, who are you? Are you the student, or are you the parent, or are you a preparer? When that gets answered, that will dictate what information you will use to log into the FAFSA. If you are the student, you're logging in with your account information, your username and password. If you are the parent or a preparer, then you will go in and you will put in information about the student, their social security number, date of birth, and some other identifying information. One of the updates to FAFSA, which I'm thrilled about, is that now the help topics will refer to line numbers on the tax forms, and you'll be able to see those. So when you click on the question mark next to the question and they're asking about education credits, they will have highlighted on the screen what line you are looking for on the taxes. In addition, there are going to be some updates to the My Student Aid mobile app. That will happen probably in the middle of October. But again, students using the app or parents or adult learners using the app, they will be needing to either update it or they will be downloading it on or after October 1st to have the 2021-2022 FAFSA on it. There's going to be a new dashboard. You'll be able to quickly access some popular tasks like filing the FAFSA or doing your entrance counseling. And there's also a personalized page to determine next steps to take. And I just wanted to give you a look at that dashboard, and you'll see on there that there is not only a place to file your FAFSA, but there is a place to sign your master promissory note and complete your entrance counseling. For the 2021-2022 IRS data retrieval tool, students completing that for 2021-2022 will have access to that tool on October 1st. There's data available in both English and Spanish, and you can use the IRS data retrieval tool when you are using the My Student Aid mobile app. There's a change this year. Some of you might recall that last year, with the 2018 tax form and this new Schedule 1, there was a question on the FAFSA about Schedule 1. And it was pretty confusing for folks, understandably so. But what I can tell you is this year, if a person's using IRS data retrieval, they will be able to pull in that information from Schedule 1. So people will not have to answer that, did you file a Schedule 1 question, or were you required to file a Schedule 1? If a family is not able to use the IRS data retrieval, then there is still the question on the FAFSA that asks about whether or not a family filed a Schedule 1. And again, they ask, did you or will you file a Schedule 1 on your 2019 tax form? Answer no if you didn't file one, or if you filed a Schedule 1 to report unemployment, educator expenses, IRA deduction, student loan interest deduction, Alaska Permanent Fund dividend, or virtual currency. So that little bit confusing question is still there, but if you use IRS data retrieval, it should be coming right to you. In addition, this summer, there was some COVID-19 guidance that came from the federal student aid programs. And I want to mention that some of this information was really a reminder rather than new guidance. So this was a reminder about acceptable documentation for students to complete verification. In some cases, if a student or a parent of a dependent student has not filed a tax return and they need to get a verification of non-filing, but they're unable to do so, and the school has no reason to doubt that they made a good faith effort to get it, the college or university may accept alternative forms of documentation. This is also true with obtaining a duplicate IRS W-2 form. Again, they should first request a duplicate, but if they're unable to do so, the college or university may accept alternative forms of documentation. So for non-tax filers, a college or university could accept a signed statement certifying that the individual tried to get a verification of non-filing and that they haven't filed and they're not required to file an income tax return for that tax year, as well as listing the sources of any income earned by the individual and the amount of income from each source, as well as a copy of an IRS Form W-2 or equivalent document for each source of employment income received by the individual in the applicable tax year. And so they need to make a good faith effort to get these forms, but colleges might have their own forms that a student or parent of a dependent student could fill out to say that I tried to get this information, but I was not able to do so. There was some other guidance in that July 9th announcement. There were flexibilities for distance education and academic calendars. There was some guidance about satisfactory academic progress and the use of pass-fail grades. They also talked specifically about needs analysis. And so any aid, grants, low interest loans received by victims of an emergency from a federal or state entity for the purpose of providing financial relief is not counted as income in calculating a family's expected family contribution under federal methodology or as estimated financial assistance when they're packaging their financial aid. Now, the important thing to mention and to point out is this is about federal methodology and federal EFC. So colleges that are using institutional methodology or maybe use the CSS profile form, they might be doing something different than the federal guidance, but they cannot do that for federal student aid. They could only do that for their own. The other piece of this is the Department of Education and federal student aid has a risk-based model, and that looks at professional judgments that college and university financial aid people make. For folks who aren't familiar with professional judgment, if a student files a FAFSA and things have changed, they have special circumstances, the financial aid office can do a professional judgment and make changes to that student's FAFSA. Now, the Department the Department of Education understands that high unemployment nationwide is increasing the number of professional judgment decisions that they're having to make. And so as a result, for the current school year and the past school year, the department's going to make appropriate adjustments to their risk-based model, and they're not going to negatively view colleges who are doing a lot of professional judgments. They know that this is happening, and they won't use it as a selection criteria for program compliance review. I wanted to talk a little bit and shift gears and talk about FAFSA completion. I mentioned the College Board Scholarship Program. The College Board Opportunity Scholarship has a complete FAFSA section, and students can sign up for that on their College Board account once they file their FAFSA. The College Board is awarding 200 scholarships each month in October, November, and December. Those are $1,000 scholarships to students who say they file a FAFSA. They're awarding an additional 100 scholarships in January and February to students who say that they completed a FAFSA. The scholarship program does not require an application, an essay, transcripts, standardized scores. All it needs is a student to say, yes, I filed a FAFSA. There's also going to be financial aid help from VSAC. We will have one-on-one appointments, and I understand a member of our staff is going to talk about that later, but vsac.org/FAFSA is where families can sign up for one-on-one appointments with a VSAC outreach member who can help them with filing their FAFSA. And then we're also doing financial aid and managing college cost presentations online. You can find that on our events list, and that's actually at the bottom of our main page, and you can view all events and see what's available. Many high schools have a FAFSA Vermont grant completion tool. Most of the high schools in Vermont have signed a memorandum of understanding with us, and high schools can obtain that access through My VSAC. What high schools do is they upload the students' names and dates of birth from their senior class, and then VSAC will share information from high schools. All that they share is information of, one, was a FAFSA received, and they would be able to see a submission date and process date if a FAFSA was received. And was a Vermont grant application received, and was the student selected for federal verification? So for school counselors that are working with seniors, you may not know why the student was chosen for verification, and you probably don't need to get into that. But one of the things you can say to the student is, it looks like colleges are going to be asking you for more information, and it's important that you respond to that. And I think we're ready for questions for the federal part of this update.
Okay, so far we have what does it mean to be a student from a freely associated state in the login on the FAFSA?
So that's a great question. I think that those are students from, oh gosh, they are not a recognized state. So like students from Guam.
Guam, yeah.
Yeah, is one of them, but that's the freely associated state. So sometimes those students do not have, you know, social security numbers, and there's guidance on the federal student aid website about what students should do in that case.
And then does the not counting aid received in emergency include the PPP for small businesses?
My understanding is that PPP is a loan initially. And so that is part of the information that does not need to be used in determining federal student aid.
Obtaining a paper FAFSA, that I know you can do at FAFSA.gov. You can download a PDF. The video recording is going to be posted on the VSAC site, so everybody can access this. And we will include that link in our follow-up email with the eval. What are dual enrolled seniors entitled to through FAFSA? The answer to that one is nothing exactly through FAFSA, but we do ask that they, not dual enrolled, but early college students complete the FAFSA in order to add that to their Vermont grant application, because early college students are eligible for a basic incentive grant if they are income eligible, which is $1,000 or $500 a semester. Dually enrolled seniors, if they're taking 1 or 2 classes, do not do the FAFSA. Are the tax returns still supposed to be prior? So yes, but we're talking about the 21-22 school year. So we're talking about 2019 taxes that you would file starting in October. And,
correct. And Stacy, can I just jump in? Because I think that's sometimes part of the confusion when we are doing these presentations. We're looking forward to the 2021-2022 school year, but we are currently in the 2020-2021 school year. So if people are looking to apply for financial aid for this particular school year, they are using 2018 income information.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then the last one, are students completing for College Board FAFSA scholarships, or will they get one if they just apply? They are competing. It's a random drawing of those that say they've completed the FAFSA. All right.
That's correct. And there are going to be 800 recipients of that $1,000 scholarship. So it is a nationwide, yes, there will be thousands of students applying nationwide, But this is one of those things where with so many recipients, it's worth it for students to sign up.
All right, and I think we should move on, but we'll follow up with additional questions in a Q&A document that we'll send out. All right, so I'm going to talk about the updates to the Vermont grants. Just a reminder to everybody that this is state-based need-driven grant money, so income-based. And there are 4 Vermont grant programs: the full-time degree grant, part-time degree grant, the advancement grant for taking non-matriculated college courses or doing non-college based training. And then there's also the micro grant program. And just as an idea of what we are working with per year, the legislature gave us just over $20 million for the 2021 school year to allocate. We've awarded, or did award, over 10,000 part-time and full-time grants in the previous year, and over $58,000 in the emergency micro grant program, which is the $50 to $400 grant for those that are experiencing unexpected emergency expenses that would keep them from completing their program. All right, the application is going to remain the same. It's important when you're advocating with students, or if you are a parent, or if you are the student yourself, to make sure you're picking the correct year. You want to be sure you're asking for the money for the year that you will need it. So 2021, 2022 for those that are currently seniors and heading off to college. You can apply directly from the end of the FAFSA on the confirmation page, and we'll show you a picture of that in a moment. Or you can just go directly to VSAC.org, and in the top right corner, you'll see the My VSAC button. Everybody who is applying for a part-time, full-time, or advancement grant, or needs to get a micro grant, must have completed a My VSAC account, so I have to have created one. And for the micro grant, they must have been awarded a grant. The advancement grant, we have some exciting news this year, is going to be available in May 2021 for programs that begin July 1 or later. So the degree grants are available October 1st. The advancement grants run on a different schedule and historically have been available in June, but we're going to be able to do it in May this year, which we hope will allow more students to still have access to their school counselors and their outreach counselors while they're at school. And this is what it looks like at the end of the FAFSA. You can see the blue arrow pointing to where you would start your state application to apply for a Vermont grant. And that just leads you into the My VSAC portal. The other exciting news is that we are looking at auto renewal for Vermont degree grants beginning this year. So the student has to have been continuously enrolled and had a grant awarded, dispersed, sent out the previous term. So for those that are attending this school year in 2021, if they have not already renewed their Vermont grant, then in October we will run an auto renewal. And then for the 2021-2022 students, as soon as they submit their FAFSA, it will occur automatically to do a renewal for their Vermont degree grant. It's important that the students know, and if you're working with students, that you let them know that they will need to submit a new Vermont grant application if their custodial parent changed, if their dependency status has changed and they are no longer dependent but independent, or vice versa. If they are a medical or veterinary student at UVM, and if they were denied residency the prior year, you want to be sure to remind them to reapply because they won't be automatically considered in the auto renewal. It would just say still denied residency. Great. The uploader is not new, but we want to make sure everyone realizes that parents and students can upload a digital copy of their tax documents and W-2s in their My VSAC portal. And most of the worksheets that are requested by Vermont Grant, if something is needed in addition to the FAFSA and or tax and W-2 forms, those can be also filled out and submitted in that My VSAC portal. You can still print things out and mail things in. And special circumstances, especially in this year, it's important to remember, they need to be communicated in writing to the Vermont Grant Program, and that can be done in an email to grants@vsac.org, or it can be done in a letter form if you prefer. And we're anticipating that we would award the degree grants in April of 2021, but that all depends upon the legislature allocating funds to VSAC. And questions in the grants section.
So one of the questions we have, Stacy, is if a student holds a prior bachelor's degree, can they still apply for the advancement grant?
Yes, they can. We are a very unique program in the country where that is a possibility. It is income-based and it does not exclude those that already hold a bachelor's degree.
But there are lifetime limits, right?
There are lifetime limits. A student can be eligible for up to 6 advancement grant terms in their lifetime. So it would depend on what the student has already used.
Good. I think we're ready to move on.
Okay.
So let's talk for a minute about VSAC-assisted scholarships. In the past academic year, VSAC assisted with approximately 153 different scholarships, and we dispersed more than $6.1 million in assistance to more than 3,500 Vermont scholarship recipients. Included in that, which will be talked about shortly, is the Curtis Certificate of Value Scholarship. That was awarded around $110,000 for students who were using it for short-term training in the past academic year. So the VSAC scholarships book, I should mention, is available online on our website. It's currently being printed, and we should have the application available online on MyVSAC on October 1st, 2020. Students will use the same MyVSAC account to apply for their Vermont grant, their VSAC administered scholarships, and the VSAC Advantage loan if they need one and choose to borrow one. Our deadline for the coming academic year is February 11th, 2021. The application and all supporting materials must be postmarked or uploaded by midnight. And I just want to make a little side comment here. It's really interesting to me that a lot of high school students do not understand what a postmark deadline is. And so sometimes if you're talking to them, you may need to explain that because it's something they're just not familiar with. However, the uploading deadline, they seem to understand. It's a two-part process. So the student has to do both the Unified Scholarship application, and then if there are required documents, they have to fill those out too. The FAFSA is required for all scholarships with a financial need requirement, and VSAC gets that FAFSA information automatically for every student who says that they are a Vermont resident. So they don't need to send us anything extra in most cases. We're receiving that information automatically. But that also has to be submitted by the deadline of February 11th, 2021. When students apply, this is a picture of our MyVSAC account. So when students get into MyVSAC, they have the different options available to them. We've got scholarships circled. And so a student would click on Work with VSAC Scholarships, and then they are brought to the VSAC scholarship application. And they fill that out, and if they are doing this on the same day, they can upload their scholarship documents in the same place. If a student files their application and then decides that they want to submit their documents the next day, once the application has been processed overnight, what students see when they log into Work with VSAC-assisted scholarships is they see this sort of page, and they can choose the required documents section. They can see what required documents have already been received. They can see required documents that have not been received, and they have that option to upload scholarship documents from there. It is the student's responsibility, as a reminder, to keep track of what they need to submit and when it needs to be submitted. Any questions about that?
We did not have any specific to the VSAC scholarships, but there was an earlier question, are early college students eligible for the College Board scholarships? And I do not know the answer to that, but it would depend on whether it indicates if they have to be eligible for federal Title IV funding.
Well, actually, for the College Board scholarships, students who are early college are dually enrolled, and they are still considered high school students, so they could be eligible for the College Board scholarship.
Excellent. Good to know. And then there was a request to show the date slide again. The deadlines for the scholarship it's February 11th, 2021 by midnight.
And it's important to remember at VSAC, we have the mantra of don't just meet deadlines, beat them. And part of the reason why is because if a student waits to submit their scholarship application, their unified scholarship application at 11 p.m. on February 11th, and things close down at 11:59 p.m. on February 11th, that gives schools and recommenders no time to upload documents, right? It would be the next school day before they could do that for a student because they have to submit their scholarship application first. So it's really important that when communicating with students about scholarships and about deadlines, one of the competitive pieces of scholarships is to meet the deadline. And so at VSAC, we say, don't just meet them, beat them. That gives you time to see and to give people time to submit things that you need submitted. High schools also, I should mention, high schools also have the ability to upload documents for students. They can upload transcripts and they can upload recommendations. VSAC's ask about that is that schools use their own account to do that. They should not use a student's account.
Great. All right, let's move on to loans. And the cumulative borrowing has not changed. The amounts that students can borrow per year have not altered. So you can see here, dependent students, 5,500, 6,500, 7,575, and the lifetime limit is 31,000 for dependent students. For independent students, you can see the amounts are larger because we are assuming they're also self-supporting, and their lifetime limit is $57,000. This is new for this year, the 2021-2022 school year. Students will be doing an annual student loan acknowledgement. And this requires the student and or the parent borrower to view and acknowledge their current amount that they owe in federal student loans, or if they're brand new, it's for them to understand their responsibility to repay the loan. And this has to be completed before the school can disperse their money each year. So, and this was done in part because there was some conversation about students not realizing the total amount they had borrowed. And so this is now going to be something that students need to do each year in order to get additional loan monies. And that's also available at the studentaid.gov and also on their My Student Aid app that Carrie showed a picture of earlier. There's also a tool, a loan simulator, that students can input different repayment options, input if they paid extra, how would that affect their loan? And then that will help them determine what the best repayment option is for them, we hope. And it can also give input on whether or not it makes sense for them to consolidate multiple loans into one repayment. For the CARES Act, as of March 20th, all federally held Department of Education student loans were, payments were suspended, collections on defaulted loans stopped, and the interest rates were all set at 0. And then on March 27th, that became law through September 30th. And since then, guidance has been given to the Education Secretary to continue this through December 31st of 2020. So any loans that were in repayment or in default on March 20th basically froze and will stay that way until December 31st. And it's also important to know that any automated payments that were being made were suspended also. So there was no more auto payments for student loans. And these are the interest rates that are current year. We won't know the following 21-22 school year until about June, when the loan rates are set based on the Treasury rate. This is the lowest interest rate we've seen in ever, in a really long time for undergraduates in particular, 2.75%. And you can see we also noted the origination fee, in part because we want to be sure everyone is remembering that the fee is taken off the total that is borrowed prior to it being applied to the student's account. And this is particularly important if you look at graduate and plus loan origination fees, to be sure a student is making is borrowing enough to cover the bill that they need to cover. And the student loan options also have not changed. We always encourage students to look at their federal direct loan options first, because these have the typically the lowest interest rates and the most borrower benefits for the student. And then there are non-federal education loans, including a VSAC product and many nonprofit organizations or banks or credit unions and other lenders that offer student loans. We encourage students to compare those loans very carefully, particularly in fixed versus variable rates, and benefits and protections if they get into a challenge. The parent loan options also remain the same in terms of the federal plus loan plus parent loan for undergraduate students. Also a relatively low interest rate compared to previous years. And then there are many non-federal options, including a VSAC option, which depending upon the credit history of the borrower may be more affordable than a plus loan. And again, we won't know what those loan rates look like for the 21-22 school year until end of June or July 1st. We have a product, booklet called My Education Loans, which can be very helpful in helping people figure out what kind of borrowing makes the most sense for them. And it's looking at what is available after their federal direct student loans. And you can visit the vsac.org /learn site to find this loan guide, and also some calculators to compare if you borrow at different interest rates and different repayments, what does that look like? We have 2 student loan products, the Advantage loans, one student loan product and one parent loan product. And I think the other thing to remember is that all parent loans that are taken out are the parent's legal responsibility. They are not in the student's name. The student loans may be borrowed by the student or may be borrowed by the student and a cosigner. And many private loans will require a cosigner for students. And this booklet is a great place for them to start to compare the options. If they are looking at a VSAC Advantage loan, this is what they would see when they sign into their My VSAC. And you can see we've highlighted the Advantage loan application button. One thing I will mention there too is that the cosigner will need a My VSAC account as well as the student who is requesting the Advantage loan. So it's important that you each set up your own My VSAC account, and you cannot use the same email. So a parent cannot do this for a student. Okay. And these are some excellent resources in determining the amount that a parent or a student can borrow comfortably and feel like they can pay back. It's great to know how much would you need to make to have this be a reasonable part of your budget. And we have the VSAC shows you how episode about choosing your education loans, which is we would refer people to this. We have a YouTube channel that has a ton of really great information, including a very good video about choosing your education loans. Okay, questions?
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Stacy, last presentation, this was you. Now it's
right.
me.
I coughed last time, so Carrie's covering for me this time. So I see there's one about is the repayment option information available prior to signing loan documents to help plan for how much of the loan to accept? Yes. There's a series of paperwork that you would do with the loan servicer that would show what your repayment options were, what your interest rate was, and lifetime cost of that loan. Yes, so you should expect that from your lender. And can you please repeat how students apply for the College Board Scholarship?
So the way that students apply for the College Board Scholarship is they need to have a College Board account. And there's a place on their College Board account to look at opportunity scholarships. They need to accept the terms and conditions. And then as they complete the different tasks, they will click to say that they've done it. And that is how they apply.
Great. And I also realized that I forgot to mention another exciting update in grants is that the advancement grant for the current school year, 2020-21, is $3,000 yearly limit as opposed to $2,500 the previous year. So that is also an exciting ability to offer more support to those that are looking for either non-college training or to take a few college classes and test things out.
Perfect. So we're going to move on to information resources. We believe that there are a lot of resources out there to help people with this college financing process. And so one of them we want to let you know about is the FAFSA demo system. That is available at fafsademo.test.ed.gov. You have a username and password that you can use, and they have some sample accounts that you can go in and you can try out. So you can try out the one for a dependent student. You can try out one for an independent student. What you will notice is that you cannot hook up to the IRS data retrieval. You cannot actually submit anything. It is really just an opportunity to move through the FAFSA without being in an actual FAFSA. And it comes live right before the new FAFSA becomes available. In addition, VSAC has an education professionals page, and this is going to be the place where you will find information and updates about news, about events. There will be linked to publications that you can order right on that page, and there are also blog posts. So it's something that if you have not bookmarked that, it's really useful. And then additionally, from this workshop, we have a financial aid resources page that has FAFSA information, information for foster and homeless youth, information about different programs, more information about net price calculators as a resource for families to plan for college costs, contact information, as well as additional resources. And this will be the place where you will find the recordings from both the Financial Aid 101 workshop that was offered last week, as well as this presentation. Additionally, for some high schools and agencies, you may have just received an email from VSAC encouraging you to file your publications orders. And you can do that online, and you can request printed pieces for your families. But if you also wanted, you could download some of our electronic documents and you could add them to your own website. You can also track pre-order and shipping statuses, and you can get order reminders from VSAC. There is the website listed here, but like I said, you should have received an email probably within the past week encouraging you to file your publication orders.
Great. So there was a question, is there a how to complete the FAFSA video you recommend that we can share with families? Absolutely. We have one on our VSAC Shows You How on our VSAC YouTube channel that Carrie completed last year, but we will also be doing that again on October 15th. VSAC shows you how to complete the FAFSA for the new 21-22 school year FAFSA. That's a great question.
And finally, we would love to have you have our contact information. You can reach us at our last name at vsac.org. And certainly if more questions come up, you can let us know. If we don't know the answer, we can certainly refer you to folks who can answer that question. We won't try to answer it if we shouldn't. Anything else you want to add, Stacy?
No, I think we did it all. Just a request for any additional questions that you want to post in the chat. We have a minute or two before we'll begin our next section.
Perfect. So,
right.
wow, we are not only on time, we are a minute soon. Thank goodness for caffeine, right? Chris, am I showing the right slide? Oops.
You're not currently sharing a slide.
I'm not currently sharing a slide. Aha. Okay. Well, let's fix that.
What's happening? Perfect. Good to go.
Is that it now?
It is.
Yep.
Perfect.
And we did have one last question about having this presentation emailed out. We will email out a link. We will post this presentation on our VSAC site as well. And yes, you will get a link to that and the eval. If you, once everybody who has registered will get that.
Perfect. So I am going to introduce Marilyn Cargill. She is our Vice President for Research and Financial Aid Services, and she will begin this process of bringing you all up to date on what's happening at VSAC.
Thank you, Carrie. Can you just go right ahead and move us to the next slide? So there's a lot going on at VSAC right now, and we certainly want to make sure that people are aware of what's happening. So this literally is the laundry list of things we're going to talk about in the next 45 minutes. So Carrie, if you will start with the first slide on appeals, that would be great. Thank you. So VSAC was really happy and lucky to receive funding from the state this year, in addition to our normal appropriation. So in June, we were approached by the state of Vermont to ask us if we received CARES Act funding, CRF funding for students, how might we be able to use that money to help ensure that Vermont families that were impacted by COVID would still be able to go on to college and post-secondary education this year. So the very first thing we did was we set up an appeal process that families could apply for. And it's very, very simple. Families can reach out to VSAC with a phone call, they can email us, they can write us a letter and let us know what is happening in their situation that is making it especially difficult for them to pay for higher education. And the process is such that some families are definitely impacted by COVID. We all know that. And other families have the same types of problems, but they're not necessarily COVID related. The funds that we receive from the state of Vermont can only be used for the COVID issues, but we have the state grant dollars that we can use for all of the other issues. So far to date, we've had 850 students appeal their financial aid award from the state of Vermont. 92% of those were approved. And the average increase in award for those approvals is $2,300. So it has been really worthwhile having students reach back out to us. Another group of students also successfully appealed, but it wasn't for COVID money. So we have done about 1.6 million in COVID money and another $400,000 in state grant money to increase awards for Vermont families this year. This, we've reached out, hold on one second, Carrie. We've reached out to students through emails. Our Vermont college partners have been marvelous talking to their students, encouraging them to appeal. These funds are going to be available through December 20th. They have to be dispersed by that date, December 20th of 2020. So we are still accepting appeals. And if families are finding that they are still encountering hardship across this fall semester, we encourage them to reach out to us. Thank you, Carrie. The second way that we chose to use some of the CARES Act funding that came to VSAC was to address an issue that had been raised to us by the Vermont colleges as well as students. And that was the fact that all of our Vermont schools envision their students needing some type of remote learning, whether the students are taking some of their classes from their dorm rooms, whether they're taking them from home and doing completely remote learning, or whether they're leaving the campuses prior to the Thanksgiving break and actually taking maybe some classwork in the week or two, in first week or two in December, and then their finals from home. All of the schools saw that that was going to be part of their path forward for the fall semester. We offered a technology scholarship that Vermont colleges and outreach counselors could nominate students for. The student needed to be financially needy, and they needed to they needed to have to participate in remote learning. So far, we have awarded $1.35 million in technology scholarships to students that fit that requirement. The funds are dispersed directly to the student because the student has to be able to purchase this equipment themselves. This is not a normal, I shouldn't say normal, but a lot of colleges don't include technology as part of a student's budget under a normal year because they're taking their coursework in person, face to face. So we have gotten a lot of money out the door to students. We are still accepting nominations. We still have schools sending them in to us. The way this worked is we've received probably somewhere close to 6,000 nominations between the outreach counselors and the Vermont colleges. We are still receiving students who are thinking about this and writing to us to say, yes, they still need help. And this help could be with a computer or a laptop. This help could be for a printer. It can be help with high-speed internet. It could be help with software that they need for a course that they're trying to take. So once we are notified that a school has told us, or the outreach has told us that a student is nominated, we reach out to that student and ask them, do you need help with technology? And I think it is just a shining example of Vermont students and Vermont families that the vast majority of students said, no, I'm all set. Even though they were eligible to ask for the $1,000, they didn't ask for it unless they actually needed it. And I have great respect for Vermont families for putting the needs of others first and saying someone else may need this more than I do. But as I said, we have sent this out to 1,350 students so far. We do have funds remaining and students can continue to request these funds if they need them. Thank you, Carrie. Another program I just wanted to highlight for a moment is the dual enrollment early college stipend. This is not a new program. This program's been around, I think we're in our 4th or 5th year now. But I wanted to highlight it simply because this is such an important program for students that are interested in taking dual enrollment courses. So schools, high schools can nominate rising juniors or seniors for a dual enrollment voucher. If that student is enrolled in free and reduced hot lunch, and if they are going to have textbooks or travel expenses, they can be nominated for this stipend. The stipend is $150, and again, the money is sent directly to the student. For this current year, we have just under $83,000 available in this program. So again, high schools are actually letting us know who's eligible. When they send in the list of students that are applying for the voucher, they are answering the question whether that student is, whether that student receives free and reduced hot lunch or whether they're eligible for it, even if they don't take advantage of it. And then they verify that there's costs. The other way this particular stipend can be used is for early college students. Students that are enrolled in early college who have applied for their Vermont State Grant, which is the other source of funding that they can receive, if they are found eligible for the state grant program, that means they filled out their FAFSA and their Vermont grant application, and we've determined that they're eligible for the grant, will also receive the early college stipend to help offset some of their books and supplies. Thanks, Carrie. A fairly new scholarship that we have, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about this program to highlight it for folks, is the Curtis Training Scholarship. And I think Stacy probably mentioned this a moment ago, but I just wanted to mention this. This is a brand new type of scholarship, and this is a place where foundations and private funders are really beginning to look at the idea of using scholarships, not just for college degrees and Title IV institutions, but for training programs. How does the state and how do private organizations help adult learners go through a training program that ends up with them being in a job that has a livable wage, and it's a high demand job that Vermont needs people to be working in? So this particular program was first came up last year. It's going to run again this year. The Hale Foundation has stepped in and put $300,000 that can be used last year, this year, and next year into this program. And we are incredibly thankful for that. The other leading funder of this is Joe and Dale Booten. So this is for adult students. They need to be nominated by an outreach counselor in our EOC program. So Stacy is a perfect example of someone who nominates students for this particular training program. So far, we've had this past year, 80 students received funding in this program and received about $110,000. We had recipients from every county in Vermont, so this is definitely getting a lot of geographic diversity. And they attended 40 different training programs. So this really has broad reach in the training fields, and certainly something to be thinking about if you work with adult students. Having them get in touch with an EOC counselor can be extremely helpful. Another scholarship that I just wanted to highlight is the Choose Vermont Scholarship. This current year is the second year that this has run. So the first year we ran it, it was a very short program. There were two $5,000 scholarships that students could receive. And this was really all about incenting out-of-state students and in-state students to really look at the great colleges and universities that we have here in Vermont. And so if you had never gone to school before and you had chosen a Vermont institution, you could go online to the state of Vermont and register for a scholarship. This current year, the one we're sitting in right now, 2021, the number of scholarships increased from 2 to 12. So we went from $10,000 to $60,000. And students at 11 different colleges received funding in this program. So this is another place, if you are working with high school seniors who are going on to school in Vermont next year, you should absolutely be encouraging them to apply for this scholarship. Every Vermont student who's attending school for the first time in Vermont should definitely take the time to fill this out. So at this point, am I 100% sure the scholarship will be offered for the 21-22 school year? I'm not. I have not yet spoken with the state of Vermont, but it has been extremely successful. So I believe that it will be offered, and we certainly will get information out to the schools and to families once we know for sure what's happening with this. The nice thing about this scholarship is it's not about writing a letter or an essay. You don't need recommendations. This may be the simplest scholarship that Vermonters can apply for. Thank you. Stacy also mentioned the microgrant program. What I wanted to highlight about this program is that this is the 4th grant program for the state of Vermont. So for a very large number of years, probably more than 30 now, the state of Vermont has had a full-time grant program, a part-time grant program, and a non-degree or advancement grant program. This past year, our board of directors made the micro grant program our 4th permanent grant program for the state. And as Stacy explained, this program is all about trying to make sure that we do not have students stopping out or dropping out of school or not being able to return because of a small and unexpected expense. This is a maximum $400 grant. This past year, and again, COVID played really deeply into this grant because as students had to leave their college campuses in March, a lot of them didn't have the technology that they needed in order to be able to finish their academic semester from home. We awarded over $58,000, $400 at a time. So another really good program for students that are really hitting hard into unexpected expenses that could cause them to drop out of school, and certainly one that schools can nominate students for this, so Vermont colleges can nominate students. Upward Bound counselors can nominate students, and our outreach counselors can nominate students. So lots of ways for students to be considered. On the college campuses, students can, it could be someone from Res Life, it could be someone from Student Services that's nominating the student. They go through the school's financial aid office, and those will be forwarded to VSAC. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Another brand new scholarship that launched just this year. In fact, I think it's in the process of launching right now. The Department of Labor has created a CTE training scholarship. And this is to help adults who are studying at career and technical education centers. It's up to $1,000 that an adult can receive. They need to be nominated by a WIOA counselor. So in this case, a student who is attending a career or technical education center meets with our outreach counselor. They apply for the advancement grant. They'll meet with a WIOA counselor as well. Depending on whether or not they have financial need from the WIOA counselor's point of view, that counselor can nominate them. The really wonderful thing about this new scholarship is it could be used for tuition if that's what the student needed, but it can also be used for tools, equipment, uniforms, travel expenses. It can be used in a lot of different ways to help adult students be able to afford training. So another opportunity if you're working with adults. I did want to take a moment and talk about some research that VSAC has done on behalf of our state, looking at the impact that COVID has had on students. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this survey other than to say we've run it twice now. We ran it in June and July. It was clear that Vermont residents were interested in returning to school. This was FAFSA filers, and obviously those FAFSAs had been filed before COVID even hit and some after, and we wanted to know, was COVID changing their plans to go to school, and financially, were they being impacted? And of course, the impact, as you can see on this slide, 7 out of 10 students indicated COVID had directly impacted their ability to be able to attend college. So if we can go on, this particular survey is available on the VSAC website. If you go to vsac.org and click on research, you can see it there. And the very last thing that I wanted to just spend a moment on are VSAC research minutes. Not everyone is a research geek. I happen to really like research, and I like reading those deep papers and 20 and 30 pages of reports, but not everyone does. Not everyone has the time. VSAC has started synthesizing those big research papers down literally into a one-page and one side of one piece of paper infographic to make that information really digestible. So if folks are interested in seeing the research minutes, they are also on our website. So I think I am out of time and I'm on my last slide. I would like to take a moment to introduce Kirsten Baum. Kirsten is the director of our career and education outreach programs.
Thanks, Marilyn. This is so great to see so many of you here this morning. When I last looked, we were at around 75 or so participants taking time out of what's a really busy day in an unprecedented time. So thank you for that. I also just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you to my VSAC colleagues, Carrie Harlow, Chris Berry, and Stacy King, who not only presented earlier today, but also did all the backstage work to make this workshop a reality for you all. Our outreach team at VSAC is really a dream team, and I'm really proud to feel lucky to be a part of it every day. So thanks to that group. I have just 4 slides to share with you, and they're going to share a portfolio of virtual offerings that our whole VSAC team has assembled to continue to serve Vermonters safely in this environment and kind of unprecedented time. And actually many of these offerings have been already kind of noted throughout the presentation, which is so great. So this will be a bit of a review with no pop quiz at the end. So the first thing on this slide here is VSAC Shows You How. And these are 1 hour kind of webinars designed for students, families, and professionals who work with students and families. They're hosted on Zoom and broadcast to Facebook Live. The topics that are listed here have already been produced and watched by students and families across the state. Several of you on this webinar have actually been part of designing and delivering these. Thank you for that. And the recordings of these are accessible on our website. And as folks have mentioned, the next VSAC Shows You How is on October 15th at 6 p.m. and it's going to be VSAC Shows You How to File a FAFSA, which I'm sure your students and families that you work with will find really timely. And you know, the name kind of says it all. We're just showing folks how to do something, walking folks through these topics. Also on this slide are Zoom rooms. These are every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And these are designed for students, families, and professionals who work with them also. These are typically geared towards slightly older students, adult students. Stacy and her team have put these together. And again, some of you on this call have partnered with us to deliver the content, so thank you. And the topics listed here are some of the topics that we've already covered. Upcoming topics that might interest you, again, these are Tuesdays at 10 a.m. So on September 29th, we have one on resources for foster youth. And on October 6th, we have one on educational resources for military connected students. FAFSA every day. We used to call these at VSAC FAFSA Fridays, but this year it's FAFSA every day. So we know, and this has been mentioned again by colleagues already, but we know that some students and families benefit from one-on-one support in filing their FAFSAs. And this is something that we've provided at VSAC throughout the pandemic, but we just want to highlight it here. October through February, we have just one more way that students and families can access this support. So on VSAC's website, there's the FAFSA First page that Carrie mentioned, and students and families can sign up right there for a one-on-one slot to meet with a counselor. The meeting could happen, I'm just gonna say one more thing about that, could happen over Zoom or the phone, if that's an option. To meet over Zoom, we encourage it because screen sharing can really help students and families, but they can also meet with a counselor over the phone. Thanks, Carrie. So on this slide, again, some more virtual offerings, managing college costs. These are presentations that VSAC typically provides in a non-COVID time, in person, in high schools across the state, and they give a general overview of financial aid for families, grants, scholarships, loans, how to pay for post-secondary education. This year, they will be virtual presentations and we'll offer 6 to 8 of them live across the fall, live meaning live online. If students and families have a VSAC outreach counselor that they're more familiar with, they can register for that presentation. So if your students typically work with Carrie, they can register for her presentation. But if they have soccer practice that night, they could go to any one of the other presentations. There's also a pre-recorded version of this presentation already on our website in case a student or family would like to, watch it at their leisure. College and career pathways. As many of you know, these events are typically held across the state, designed to support students and families in exploring their post-secondary options. In non-COVID times, these are held, as many of you know, with a component during the school day and then an evening portion for families and students of all ages. This past year, we held 2 in-person events before Governor Scott's stay-at-home order. And after the stay home, stay safe order, we were able to pivot and offer virtual recordings and basically on-demand access to all of the college and career pathways materials. And we're really excited that we have had over 8,000 views of those resources. They're currently still on our website, so you could access any of those videos or tools at any time. And we're planning for a virtual delivery this spring as well. And so we'll be sharing more information about the specifics of that as we get closer. The Transition and Career Conference, again, as many of you know, and I'd venture to say probably half the people, at least on this webinar, typically attend this event, maybe 75%, is a professional development opportunity for school counselors and staff held each spring, and it's focused on supporting students, through the transition out of high school. And it really is, like I said, a tremendous event that I know many of you typically attend. We had 250 attendees when we last held this. This year, we're going to be spreading this professional learning opportunity across the year with, shorter, more digestible sessions in the fall, winter, and early spring, all virtual. And we'll be partnering with the Vermont School Counselors Association to really hone the content for that programming. We can go to the next slide. So this is an exciting new campaign called Vermont Applies that VSAC is launching this December, designed to really support students in such an uncertain time in planning for and applying for post-secondary options. And there's, again, a number of folks on this call who have been part of our thinking about this and are hearing some of this information in sort of live time as we've been brainstorming and planning it together, which is really exciting. We see this as a real partnership between school counselors and post-secondary institutions as well. Again, just to think about how to support students in a year that must feel so different for them, right, in continuing and pursuing their post-secondary plans. So part of this initiative will be a virtual Vermont College Fair, which is a complement to many of the national virtual college fair options that students have available to them. As well as New England, there's a NEACAC virtual college fair. I'm giving a big smile to Jen Jones, who said, yay, Vermont Applies. As I said, many of these other virtual college fairs are in October and November. And so we're hoping that a December initiative will really keep the momentum going for students who really need our support, as well as the students who are just moving into the post-secondary search a bit more slowly than they might in a typical year, given the complexities and uncertainties presented by COVID. So the virtual college fair that we're talking about, if I haven't already said this, would be specific to Vermont institutions in December. Great, and my last slide here is on Vermont Career Connect, which is a program that's based on an initiative that our team typically delivers in the Northeast Kingdom called Kingdom Career Connect that we've been able to pivot this year to offer, again, statewide. It's a career exploration event, and it's designed specifically with Vermont's high growth, high wage jobs in mind. It's designed for middle school students, but it's really accessible for any age. The videos are so cool. So there's a website already live for this event. You can see it there, vsac.org/Vermont Career Connect. And there's resources like career interest surveys, but there's also over 40 pre-recorded videos with industry representatives across 16 career clusters. Many of them are Vermonters. So it's kind of cool to hear from Vermonters about high growth, high wage jobs that are in Vermont. And then there'll be a live virtual event from 10 to 12 on October 28th that we would encourage your schools to participate in. And we're grateful for collaboration with many partners who are listed on this slide here to get this event off the ground. So I've just mentioned a lot of dates and programming, and this next slide, my colleague Patrick is going to cover. But just to say about those four slides on virtual programming, my one takeaway for you is it's all virtual, so you can just go to our website. Anything I just said, there's access to it on our website. And we are going to provide schools and agency partners with timely materials to market these opportunities for students and families. So those will be coming to you, and you can use those to support students and families in accessing these events. I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Patrick.
Thanks, Kirsten. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. I know this is a big commitment of your time, and there's a lot of information we're throwing at you. And I think when I was watching the participants, we're still above 70, and so I really just appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. We've only got about 4 slides left, so give me some kind of light at the end of the tunnel here. The Whole School Aspiration Project is one that we've been working on since 2014. As you know, we do a lot of work within our outreach program that Kirsten oversees through 3 federal grants. And the Whole School Aspiration is outside of that world, which gives us a lot of an ability to evolve and innovate our work. And so we've done that with a couple of schools since 2014. And we've been able to kind of use that ability to kind of be flexible to work with some of the best practices that we've learned through the years, and partner with the schools in their best practices, and kind of really look at where are the opportunities in this particular community, where are their strengths, and where are there things that we can work together on to improve. We've seen some really nice outcomes. A couple of examples are on this slide. And it really is a combination of development as a school-specific college and career planning curriculum for that particular institution, working with students and families directly, and working with staff at the school where there's opportunities to build capacity or to create new ideas that can be sustained within the school. And that's really one of our major objectives in this Whole School Aspiration work, is to work with the schools and continue to evolve this program so that we can kind of come into a school for some number of years, work with that school and that community, build some ability to kind of increase the numbers on aspirations for whatever education people want to pursue after high school. And then have that be sustainable to a degree after we're gone, and go off and take those learnings that we just learned with our partner, in addition to the experience that we have, and go off to some other school and continue to kind of grow this capacity across the state. So it's an exciting program that gives us lots of ability to kind of be creative together. We're looking at potentially a new school this coming year. So if people are interested in partnering with us and trying to improve its aspiration rates in your school, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to either Kirsten or I later on, and we can start some conversations around that. This was all kind of begun through some research that Maryland's group did many years ago around aspiration rates in Vermont and the disparities by county. And so that spurred the legislature to help us to fund this kind of work. Go ahead, Carrie, to the next one. We talked about essential math for college and careers in prior years' presentations. So this is not necessarily a new program compared to last year, but last year was really the pilot year for this program. And this is a partnership that comes out of our Gear Up funding, as well as working with the AOE and the Vermont State College System, and high school practitioners and post-secondary practitioners in the areas of math as well. So this is a really exciting collaborative process to build a new product called EMC Squared, where students can take this course and be assured, if they are successful in all 16 elements, that they will take college level math in the Vermont State College System, and reduce the number of remediation classes that students have to take. And we know when remediation classes are needed, we have a lot of challenges with the students being successful after that. Go ahead and jump to the next slide, Carrie, which shows some of the numbers. We had 20 teachers attend the 5-day PD in the 1920 school year, and over the summer we've had 20 more professionals take the course, and a lot of them had early plans to roll that out this fall. Due to COVID, that changed their schedule a little bit, but we have 4 schools that are still planning this as a pilot for the spring. So we're excited about moving that project forward and continuing to include more schools in this as time goes on. We've had really successful outcomes as it relates to what educators are saying about the program, as well as students. 60% of students who took the course felt better about their math about math in general after they took the course, and 73% of students that took this felt that like their skills were actually better after taking the course. So we're making real partnership level movement on this as a larger team of educators across all players, the secondary school system and the post-secondary school system. So we're really excited about continuing this work moving forward. The VSAC's curriculum map is something that we've just started to look at this past year. And really this is about taking a lot of the expertise that we have, a lot of the expertise that's all of you have on this call, and building it into more of a structure that we could use to help navigate things for students across the entire state. Everybody is a unique individual. Every school has unique strengths and weaknesses, just like the students. And building this type of a curriculum where we can talk about what are the actual understandings that we need to have for students, and what are the skills that we really would love them to have so that we can kind of directly focus on where are they already strong, where can we grow their skills so that they can be successful in post-secondary. It really is a kind of a really powerful set of tools that we'll be using in lots of different places, both within our aspiration work and within all of our programs, so that we have like this kind of founding document almost that says, here's all the skills that a 7th grader should probably have. And as they move up those grades, we know that their skills should improve in certain areas, and we'll be able to kind of look at that and say, this is where the kids are that are in our caseload. Here's the areas we should focus on, so we don't have to do work that's already been done by the school or that the student's doing well on already. So that's an exciting thing moving forward this year. The last slide that I have is on a new prototype for a career and college planning app for the state of Vermont. And this is also a relatively new, innovative idea that we're working forward on. It's a prototype right now. It's a gamified concept. So it really takes some of the technology and the concept that has made gaming on phone apps so successful, and intertwining that with academic and career and college planning and financial literacy knowledge. So our goal is to make it so enticing for students that they'll be using it on a regular basis. It could be tied in once it's built to actual classwork, or it could be done individually with students, or it could be a combination of both. Our goal is to tie it to Vermont opportunities in the career field, as well as Vermont institutions at the forefront, so that we can really help students look at what their career options look like, what their education plans could look like, what those real costs are, and then from a financial literacy perspective, using those equations to help them figure out what is the return on investment. Are these good choices that I'm thinking about? Are there better choices? And then allowing them through this kind of hopefully fun gamified app to try different scenarios out and see what might work better for them. A lot of really positive feedback, a lot of reflective work, a lot of ability to kind of export their learnings and build skills, self-reflective skills, and other types of skills of learning about financial literacy and career and college planning. The idea is to kind of use this across the entire state, do a pilot the first couple of years, see who's interested in pursuing this a little bit more. If people are interested in learning more about this, you could kind of reach out to me later. We're just floating this idea right now and socializing the idea and some of the concepts across the state of Vermont, looking for who might be interested in participating in this down the road. I think that's the end of our presentations for today. I thank you for all your time, and I think turn it back to maybe Carrie or Chris for Q&A at the end here.
Great. So I am seeing that folks have been needing to bow out, understandably. We understand that you are busy, and many of us are going back-to-back Zoom meetings and sometimes need a minute to breathe in between. Are there any questions that people have before we log off for today? All right. So you'll notice that Marilyn, Patrick, and Kirsten's information, their contact information is shared on this slide. We will be following up with you after this presentation to let you know where things will be living, so where you will find the video, and also some resources and links to those. Additionally, we will have our evaluation. I'd like to encourage you to fill that out. As I said earlier today, this was something that we usually took a whole morning to do, and we tried to condense it into an hour and a half, and we understand that we gave you a lot of information today. So we'd appreciate your feedback as far as continuing to do things and how we use this when we move forward in increasingly changing times. Thank you very much for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you soon.